Brightburn, when a hero became the doom. This is Reset Recap. Let's start from the very beginning. The story begins with Tori and Kyle Breyer struggling to conceive a child. Their shelves are filled with fertility books hinting at their ongoing efforts. One night, during another attempt, Tori feels a strange vibration shake the house. The couple looks outside and sees something has crashed near their property. We jump forward in time. A series of home videos show a young boy named Brandon growing up. Later, Tori is playing hide and seek with him, now a little older. At school, Brandon answers a teacher's question, catching the eye of a classmate named Caitlin. That night, back at the farmhouse while Tori paints, Brandon begins sleepwalking. He heads to the basement, drawn toward the very meteor that brought him to Earth. He begins chanting in a strange, angry voice as he approaches it. Tori finds him and calms him down. The next morning, Brandon tries to start the lawnmower, but when it refuses to cooperate, he hurls it across the yard. Curious, he walks over to the spinning blade and shoves his hand into it, stopping it instantly without so much as a scratch. Later, the family goes to a diner with Tori, Kyle, Aunt Marilee, and Uncle Noah. When Noah offers Brandon a toy gun, Kyle immediately scolds him.
No guns.
Brandon, however, demands to keep it. The family leaves the diner mid-celebration as a waitress watches them go. The next morning, Kyle tries to talk to Brandon, but the boy is distant. Kyle notices him chewing on a metal fork without damaging his teeth. Concerned, Kyle takes him hunting. He shows Brandon how to handle a rifle and brings up the changes in his body, especially after Tori discovered lingerie ads under his bed. That night, Brandon stalks Caitlin from outside her window while soft rock music plays through her laptop. She shuts it, sensing someone's watching her. Suddenly, her mother, the same waitress from the diner, bursts into the room asking what's wrong. Caitlin can hardly breathe. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Noah and Tori are searching for Brandon. They eventually find him. The next day at school, Brandon's teacher speaks with Tori while Brandon sits nearby, sketching strange drawings in his notebook. When Tori asks about them, Brandon silently closes the notebook and walks off. Back home, Kyle notices Brandon scaring the chickens. He asks Brandon,
"Are you all right, buddy?"
Brandon says he is. They go back inside. Later, Tori and Kyle discover that all the chickens have been slaughtered. Tori blames a wolf. Kyle told her, frightened, that,
"Babe, a wolf can't do this. It can't rip a freaking door off and break a lock." I think this might be Brandon.
The following day at school, Brandon's class is doing a trust fall exercise. Caitlin, clearly uneasy after the previous night, refuses to catch Brandon. As a result, he falls to the ground. Though uninjured, Caitlin tells him she didn't help because
he's a pervert.
Brandon says,
Why?
The coach makes her help him up, but as Brandon takes her hand, he suddenly crushes it, snapping bones and making her scream. Later, in the school office, Tori apologizes to Caitlin's mother, calling it an accident. The mother doesn't buy it. She demands Brandon be arrested, but the sheriff refuses, saying he'll just attend special sessions at school. Brandon sits quietly during the argument, looking somber. Caitlin's mother lashes out, calling him the son of a psycho. Tori defends him. As the family leaves, Brandon glares back at her with a cold, threatening stare. Later that night, Brandon overhears Kyle and Tori discussing him in hushed tones. Feeling unsettled, Tori begins reading about meteors, but something catches her eye outside, an eerie glow pulsing from the barn. She rushes out to investigate and finds Brandon levitating mid-air, bathed in the otherworldly light of the meteor. As she approaches, he repeatedly chants a single haunting phrase.
Take the...
In a sudden drop, Brandon falls and slices his hand on the jagged edge of the meteor. Tori hurries to help, trying to calm him down, but Brandon panics. He screams that he came from the sky, accuses her of lying to him his whole life, and bolts into the night. Tori immediately finds Kyle and tells him what Brandon discovered in the barn. Meanwhile, out in the darkness, Brandon storms through the woods, furious. With a scream of rage, he unleashes a blast of laser vision from his eyes. Later, Brandon appears in Caitlin's bedroom as she types on her laptop, her broken hand in a cast. He tells her not to be afraid, insisting she knows how special he is. Caitlin says her mother warned her not to speak to him. Brandon replies coldly,
I'm gonna take care of that.
She begins to cry as he vanishes, leaving behind a single flower. At the diner, Caitlin's mother, closing up for the night, senses something's wrong. Stepping outside, she notices strange symbols etched on the windows, just like the ones from Brandon's notebook. The lights flicker. Suddenly, the windows explode inward. A shard of glass slices her eye, and she stumbles back, bloodied and panicked. She grabs a baseball bat, ready to defend herself. A blur of motion zips past, too fast to track. She swings wildly but hits nothing. In terror, she locks herself in the walk-in cooler. It's no use. A red-hot beam of laser vision cuts through the steel door like paper. Brandon rips it off its hinges, steps inside, and stares her down. Then he lunges. By morning, Brandon calmly tells his parents everything's fine and that the situation was handled. Back at the diner, the sheriff and his deputy investigate the gruesome scene. They find the mangled remains of Caitlin's mother and one of Brandon's symbols carved into the glass. Later, Marilee, who's both Brandon's aunt and a school counselor, tries to talk to him. But he's distant, withdrawn. The session goes nowhere. Marilee considers calling the police. That evening, Kyle vents to his friends at a bar. He recounts the incident with Caitlin's broken hand and starts voicing his darkest fear: that his son might be a monster. Meanwhile, at home, Marilee is in the bathroom when the lights begin to flicker rapidly. Brandon appears at her house, saying he needs to talk. He warns her not to speak to the police. It wouldn't be good for anyone. Marilee tells him to leave. He seems to go, but moments later, he's standing outside her window watching her text Noah. Then he returns, wearing his costume, and hides inside her closet. Noah arrives, finds Brandon, and demands he leave. He forces him outside and threatens to tell his parents everything. They load up into Noah's truck. But when Noah tries to push Brandon into the passenger seat, Brandon violently hurls him against the garage door. Noah gets up, terrified, and speeds away, but he's certain Brandon is following him. Suddenly, his truck starts to malfunction, swerving, jerking, losing power. Noah tries to restart his truck, but before he can react, Brandon appears directly in front of him. Terrified, Noah screams. Brandon lifts the entire vehicle into the air with ease, levitating it for a brief moment before slamming it down with brutal force. The impact crushes the truck and Noah's jaw, leaving him broken and barely alive. As Noah lies dying, Brandon calmly walks over, kneels beside him, and uses his blood to draw another of his ominous symbols into the dirt. Later, Brandon returns home, casually claiming he'd been out playing soccer. He explains his missing shirt by saying he was bullied. That night, Kyle has a disturbing nightmare. He sees Tori finding the infant Brandon inside the crashed meteor and choosing to adopt him. But the dream takes a dark turn as baby Brandon's eyes glow red with deadly laser light. A ringing phone pulls Kyle from sleep. He and Tori rush to the hospital, where they find Marilee in shock. She tells them Noah is dead, and that Brandon visited her earlier. The pieces begin to click for Kyle. The next morning, they break the news to Brandon. His only response? Okay. Kyle grows more suspicious and accuses Brandon of being involved. Tori tries to calm him, but Brandon suddenly snaps, shoving Kyle into the pantry and smashing the doors. Tori sends Brandon away. Later, Kyle finds Brandon's shirt, blood-stained. He quietly takes it without Brandon noticing. When Kyle tries to apologize for earlier, Brandon replies again with a chillingly flat, okay. Kyle tells Tori what he found, but she refuses to believe him. Meanwhile, the sheriff examines the scene of Noah's death and compares it to the strange symbol from the diner window. It's a match. That night, Kyle flips through old birthday cards from Brandon, trying to comfort Tori, who still resists the truth. The next day, Kyle decides to take Brandon on a hunting trip. As they set off into the woods, the sheriff arrives at the Breyers' home with photographic evidence tying Brandon to the earlier incidents. Tori won't engage, but he promises to return. Out in the woods, Kyle and Brandon follow deer tracks. Kyle lets Brandon walk ahead. Back at the house, Tori finds Brandon's hidden notebook. Inside, she discovers the same symbol from the diner window and the crash site. She also finds disturbing sketches. Brandon in his outfit, a shard of glass in the waitress's eye, dead bodies, and one chilling phrase repeated again and again. "Take the world!" Tori begins to panic. In the woods, Brandon studies the tracks while Kyle quietly raises his rifle and fires. The bullet strikes Brandon's head and bounces off. Brandon turns, surprised. Kyle tries to reload, but it's too late. Brandon vanishes into the trees, then reappears in flashes, darting through the air in his dark costume. He finally slams into Kyle, tackles him, and forces him upright. Kyle stammers an apology, but Brandon doesn't hesitate. He unleashes a blast of laser vision, shooting straight through Kyle's skull, killing him instantly. At home, Tori frantically dials Kyle's number, but there's no answer. Eventually, Brandon picks up. She demands to know where Kyle is. Brandon's reply is chilling. "He's gone. I'm coming home." Then he hangs up. Within seconds, Brandon smashes through the house at blinding speed, tearing it apart from the inside. Tori calls 911, her voice panicked, but the call cuts out mid-sentence. The sheriff and his deputy respond to the emergency. When they arrive, they find the house in ruins, walls crumbling and furniture obliterated. Tori stumbles outside trying to meet them. The sheriff calls out, but before she can speak, Brandon rockets into him and rips him apart in a spray of blood. Tori screams. She and the deputy retreat into the house, desperate for cover. Upstairs, Tori hides as the deputy loads her weapon and begins searching the wreckage. She radios for backup, her voice trembling. Suddenly, Brandon appears in front of her. Then, just as quickly, he vanishes, only to materialize behind her. The deputy is slaughtered off screen. Tori hears the violence, frozen in place as Brandon hunts. She silently climbs out the window and falls hard onto the ground. Injured, but alive, she crawls toward the barn, the only place left. Inside, she sees the meteor, the same one Brandon arrived in, and remembers how it injured him before. Desperate, she tears a sharp shard from its side. Hidden among the shadows, she discovers the waitress's mutilated body. She grips the shard tightly and calls out to Brandon. He arrives, floating into the barn in his dark hood. Tori speaks softly, telling him how much he means to her. She removes his hood. Brandon looks at her with wide, innocent eyes. They embrace. She moves to stab him, but he catches her wrist instantly. With brutal force, he knocks the shard away. Then, furious, he grabs her and soars into the sky. Higher, higher, until the farmhouse is a distant dot below. He gives her one final look and lets go. Tori plummets. Brandon hovers in the air. An oncoming plane approaches fast. The next day, debris from a plane crash litters the countryside. News reports claim the aircraft went down after hitting the farmhouse, killing everyone on board, including Kyle and Tori. Brandon sits nearby, casually eating a cookie, his face blank with faux innocence. In the final scenes, the world burns. Cities fall. Millions perish. Brandon Breyer has arrived.